Hey guys, John coming to you from Evolve Custom Rod Shop, showing you how I make my custom reamers. I got some bar stock here, some round stock got from Home Depot or Lowe's. I actually think I got this from Ace. It doesn't really matter, they all carry it. Basically what you do is you stick it into the rod blank, you arbor it if you need to, and use lots of epoxy. You can use different size rod blanks. For the larger rod blanks I use thicker rod. Now I left this rod kind of long so it makes it more stable. Also so I can hold the rod blank and put on the Reamer abrasive without having it touch anything. I'm using an old carrot stick here. Had a nice taper to it, so that's what I'm using. This is Reamer abrasive. I got it from Get Bit Outdoors. This is the roughest abrasive they make. They make a finer abrasive. My fear with the finer abrasive is what might happen if you run it through EVA. It'll probably fill in all the voids and then it will no longer be abrasive. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure it out. This is a much longer roll. You can use it for 1 or 2 reamers, depending on how big your reamer is. If your reamers are small, you could probably do half a dozen. So what I'll do is I'll wrap it around the rod blank to find out how much reamer abrasive I need. I want a nice spiral on here with gaps, a little bit of gaps in between. That way any excess can spin its way off. Now an easier way of doing this is just twisting the rod blank. I did it the hard way. You can do it the easy way. You'll see later on in the video how I did it by spinning the rod blank and just holding the Reamer abrasive. Either way works. Just have a little gap in between the abrasive, and all I'm doing here is sizing it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. Once I have it sized up, I cut it to length. Once it's cut to length, I'm going to get all this adhesive off the front, all the tape, and then once that tape is off the end of the rod blank, I'm going to get everything ready to glue up. Now, I'm going to take the Reamer abrasive that I cut to length. I'm going to tape it to my bench, and I'm taping it with the abrasive side down. So the back of the Reamer abrasive is facing up. This way I can put my contact cement on it. Just tape it down so it doesn't move all over the place and create a big mess. Just do the best you can to make it lay flat. I'm using DAP Wedgwood contact cement, the red label. You can buy it in small, you can buy it in the big cans, depends on how much you use. I don't use all that much of it except from doing the Reamer abrasives. You can also use this for gluing up your EVA or EVA to Cork. Now the first thing I'll do is put it on the back of the Reamer abrasive, and I'm just going to put a coating on there. It doesn't have to be super thick, just an even coating as best you can. You do want to make sure you get the contact cement over every area. You don't want to leave any gaps. If you leave any gaps, you may have a break point on your abrasive, or you could have a place where it starts to separate, and that's no fun. Once you get done putting all the adhesive or contact cement on the back of the Reamer abrasive, you're going to go ahead and Just leave it there, and now you're going to get started on the rod blank. Now with the rod blank, the one thing I did do is I put a paper towel underneath because it is a little bit messy, and I didn't want to get it all over my rod bench, my rod lathe bench. Just make sure I get 100% coverage on this rod blank. Like I said, it doesn't have to be super thick. I just want good coverage. Stuff does not exactly go on easy, but you don't have to worry about it. Take your time. It's not going to be a problem because you need to wait for it to tack up anyhow. Once you've applied everything, give it some time to tack up. Usually takes 5-10 minutes. It just depends. You probably already have a few minutes on the Reamer abrasive. I'm going to put some gloves on now. The next part can get a little sticky and messy, so I'm yep, see it's starting to tack up. That's good. That's what I want. It almost feels like it's drying, but it's actually how this stuff works. Pop it off. Now, the only time you could run into an issue is if the Reamer abrasive were to fold in on itself. It's kind of difficult because the stuff is so stiff for it to do that, but just be careful once you've untaped it from the bench. If you're doing a smaller reamer, this is much easier to work with. So what I'll do here is I'll leave the tape on and I will pop it on there. Now, just so you know, as soon as you put the two sides of the contact cement together, it's there. It's stuck. It's not going to come off very easy. And the longer it sits, the harder it's going to hold. So just take your time. As you can see here, instead of wrapping the abrasive around the rod, I'm just turning the rod and laying the abrasive down on the rod. That way I get a nice even spiral. Gaps in between, just use your best judgment. Think of it as a drill bit. You know, you're allowing stuff to kind of clean off, and having a place for what the abrasive is taking off, leaving it a place to go. Go all the way down to the end. And it's stuck. It's not going anywhere. Okay, now the only difference is I'm going to wrap it with thread. And the reason for this is if you catch the corner of the abrasive, it could possibly come off. And once this starts unraveling, it'll basically your whole reamer will be useless at this point. So by putting some thread on here, we'll make sure it's locked down and it won't go anywhere. What I'll do is I'll, do maybe half an inch wrap just to secure down the end. And remember, it doesn't have to be pretty. This is about functionality. It's not about looks. You use a normal pull through, you do everything just the same. There you go. Now I'm going to work on the other end, doing the exact same thing. Wrap it up nice and tight. The whole point to this is just to secure the ends. Like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. All right, got that all taken care of. Now I'm going to grab my 5-minute epoxy. This is going to lock down the wraps. This is going to make sure the wraps don't go anywhere. You see I got a little bit of tape on the end. It's kind of stuck there. I'm not really worried about it because once I get the reamer moving, that's all going to disappear. If you took your time and took it off, it would be a little prettier, but it's not really necessary. So mixing 5-minute epoxy is fairly simple. I'm using my little mixing cups. I'm putting little equal amounts in. Just so you know, I get my mixing cups. I buy them at the local medical supply company. They're known as pill cups or little pill measuring cups. Like sometimes you have liquid you need to measure. But yeah, I buy them at the medical supply place. The ones you can buy in the stores, you can also get at the food supply stores, and of course, you can order them from all the rod building companies as well. I'll mix equal amounts. Now, once you have the stuff in there, mix it. This isn't like regular epoxy. You don't need to mix it for 5 minutes. If you mix it for 5 minutes, you won't have epoxy anymore. You'll just have a popsicle stick that's stuck in a in a little pill cup. So just make sure you got a good even color. That's all you need. If you have equal amounts, it'll turn out just fine. If they're a little bit off, you'll still be just fine. I'm gonna grab a cheap disposable paintbrush, and I'm literally just globbing this on. Nothing. Like I said, it doesn't have to be pretty. It's all about function. Um, I've done some of them with the normal rod building epoxy, and there's absolutely no difference between the two. The other benefit is you don't have to wait for it to dry. Now at this point, the epoxy's getting really hot. It's starting to basically harden, and the chemical reaction is starting to happen. Go ahead and put it down. Now we're going to show you what the reamers can do. I'm reaming these cross-cut EVA grips out for a gaff that I'm building. That's how thick the end of the gaff is. And I need to make sure that this EVA fits on there. There's the one I just made. Now that's not going to be big enough for that gaff. So I have a couple other ones that I've built over the years for other rod. And you can go to as big or as small as you want. Really makes these things universal. Also makes the job much easier. What I'll do is I'll grab my drill. This is just a normal 18-volt Milwaukee drill. You can pretty much use any brand. This is what I have, so this is what I'm using. I guess you could use a corded drill as well. Now what I do is, because of the way the battery sits on here, I can just lay it on its back and it sits upright, and then I can step on the trigger and then I can just run my EVA down here. If you notice, I'm turning the EVA as I'm going down. This is very important. This will keep everything level. Also, it keeps it centered. Make sure you get as centered as you can in the EVA as you're reaming it out. This goes for cork and any other materials you might want to ream out. Yep, get lots of stuff all over your hands with this. It's very normal. The other thing you want to be careful of is don't let that EVA get too hot. I do take breaks occasionally. You can almost hear it getting hot. You don't want the EVA to melt. That would not be good. And you just work it down, work it down. And you can continue on once you get them all done. It is messy, so make sure you got a way to clean it up. Every now and then you want to test fit, especially as you get closer. Nice tapered end, nice and centered. Grab the blank, do a quick test fit. Now this is a really big blank. This is for a 4-inch gaff, so I'll need to use my bigger ones as well. And you can continue seeing me ream these out. I won't show you the whole process because that's for another video, but these things are awesome, amazing. You can use old rod blanks that you don't use anymore. You can buy inexpensive rod blanks and do it that way. Guys, I hope you like this video. I hope you find it helpful. Please like and subscribe to the video. If you have the notification icon pressed, you'll get notified of future videos because I love sharing what I know. And if you guys have anything different, feel free to share that as well in the comments. Thanks for watching.